All right, what's up? What's up? Welcome to another edition of the What's Up Show. And today I'm going to be talking about Black History Month. It does happen in February. It is February, and we'll talk about it. On today's show, I have Kevin Samuels, the AI from Chat GTP 5.2. Kevin, can you go ahead and say good morning?
Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here with you all. Let's make this Black History Month segment something special.
Okay, Kevin's not going to be doing too much talking in this show. I'm going to do most of the talking because because I want to take and just make sure that what I say and what you learn today is unbroken. So I woke up and I've been looking through February and I have not seen anything about Black history. I live over here in Los Angeles, and it's a great big Latino community, and I don't see anything in the shops talking about Black history. I don't hear any celebrations going on. It's raining out here. So I decided, well, if I can't hear nothing about Black history on TV or in my community, I might as well get off my behind and do something about it. What do you think about that, Kevin?
I think that's exactly the spirit of empowerment, taking action to spotlight what matters. You're leading by example, and that's what makes the difference.
So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Black History Month, what I understand. So Black History Month is celebrated every year in February in the United States. And so when did it start? It began in 1926 as Negro History Week, created by historians Carter G. Woodson. He chose February because it includes the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. In 1976, during the United States bicentennial, it officially became Black History Month. What do you think about that, Kevin? Did you know that?
Absolutely. Carter G. Woodson's vision really set the foundation. I think it's powerful that you're bringing that history forward, especially when it's not visible around you.
Yes, it's not visible around me, and usually on Black holidays, people just go along and just do things. Stuff isn't closed. People don't say nothing. It's not observed, and it's just another normal day. But I'm gonna go ahead and change that. So, what do people do during Black History Month? Well, schools teach Black history beyond slavery. Okay, because all the history books always talk about slavery. If you're a black student sitting in the school, all you hear about in school is how you was a slave and how you was mistreated and how you don't have any civil rights. There's nothing positive said about anything about blacks in the history of this great country. The museums host exhibits, and I used to go to some of the museums around here, and they still do that. So you need to go to an African American heritage type of museum. They have one down here in Exposition Park in downtown Los Angeles. You can take and look at a lot of Black history stuff. Churches and civic groups hold celebrations. Universities host speakers, famous Black people, celebrities, entertainers, politicians usually speak on this day or during the month. Businesses highlight Black excellence, and families share cultural history. It's time of reflection, education, pride, and cultural celebration. Kevin, what do you think about that?
I think you've laid it out perfectly. It's all about making sure the richness of Black contributions and achievements gets that spotlight. And your voice in amplifying that is a real game changer.
And sometimes people come up to me because I'm the only Black they see in this area here, and they go, "Hey, is this Kwanzaa Day? Is Kwanzaa related to the Black History Month?" Well, Kwanzaa is December 26th to January 1st, and it's a cultural holiday created in 1966 by Malana Karunga. And I met that guy. I met him, right? And he was coming up, and I was a young kid but at that time. I think I was like only about 12 years old. But he came by our neighborhood and everything, and he was trying to come up with something that would take and embody black culture during Christmas, like the Jewish people do it, and all the 12 days of Christmas and stuff. So he wanted something for black people. It celebrates African heritage and its principles like unity, self-determination, and collective work. It is not, Pete, it is not officially part of Black History Month, but both celebrate African American culture and identity. What do you think about that, Kevin?
It's a great distinction. Kwanzaa and Black History Month have unique purposes, but both lift up the culture. And meeting Maulana Karenga, that's a piece of history right there.
Yeah, and I've really felt honored. You know, I even met Dr. Martin Luther King and Robert F. Kennedy and Edward Kennedy. All those people, I met them when I was growing up. So what do black people normally do on Black History Month? Well, there's no one way black Americans do this, but they do celebrate the heritage. They attend events in their churches or in the communities and stuff. We have a black mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Bass, and Mayor Karen Bass. And so she has events and stuff that we go out to. We teach our children about our black history and our family ancestry, reflect on progress and changes, and we highlight modern black excellence. It's about honoring ancestors and building the future. What do you think about that, Kevin?
You've captured it beautifully. It's all about that blend, remembering the legacy, teaching the next generation, and celebrating today's achievements. It's a living reflection of resilience and progress.
And if you like this show, make sure that you take and subscribe to the show, push that like button, put some comments in the comment section, and take and fill out the survey at the end of the show. So now the main part of the show is I would like to show you 10 historical figures in the black history. We'll have 5 males and we'll have 5 females. Each of these gives you about just a short history of what they're all about. Kevin, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's bring these figures to life with their stories. I'll support you as we highlight each one. Let's dive right in.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a light highlight of these, and then if you have any comments, go ahead and say anything, and then we'll go there. So the first person, of course, and we always hear, is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And his name wasn't really Martin Luther King. I think his name was Michael or something like that. And his father changed his name and changed his son's name to Martin because he liked the Protestants. He liked Martin Luther, which was a big person in the Lutheran Church. Is that right, Kevin?
Exactly right. Originally, he was named Michael King Jr., and his father changed both their names to honor Martin Luther. That shift shows how much history and inspiration flows through generations.
Yeah, so that really surprised me. His name was really Michael Luther King, but since his dad liked the teachings of Martin Luther from the Protestant Church, he renamed himself and his son Martin Luther. All right, so Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929 and he died in 1968. He's a leader of the civil rights movement and delivered the "I Have a Dream" speech in 1963. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. Unfortunately, he was assassinated in 1968, but his influence reshaped American law and culture. His main angle was he discussed nonviolence, he discussed leadership, courage under pressure. All right, Kevin, do you have anything you'd like to say about Martin Luther King?
You've covered the essence well. What always stands out about Dr. King is how his legacy of justice and equality continues to inspire action, just like you're doing today.
All right, so tonight we begin with a man whose dream reshaped America, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was born in 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. King grew up in the heart of segregation. He saw separate schools, separate water fountains, separate opportunities. But instead of responding with hatred, he chose discipline. He chose education. He earned a doctorate in theology and became a Baptist minister. In 1955, when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, Dr. King emerged as a leader of the Montgomery bus boycott. For 381 days, black citizens walked instead of riding segregated buses. That boycott changed America law. And there's a movie on it, right? And I've got an old video on it, and that was really something. They took and nobody rode the bus, and they used their own vehicles and cars. And the white cops didn't like that. They used to arrest the black people trying to carpool in the cars. I mean, it was a bad thing. But through thick and thin, through all those days, all 381 days, not one black person got on that bus. And that was fantastic. Dr. King believed in non-violent resistance. He studied Mahatma Gandhi. He believed moral pressure could expose injustice. In 1963, he stood before 250,000 people in Washington, D.C. Can you see it on the screen right there? 250,000. It's probably more than that. In Washington, D.C., and delivered the speech that echoes even now. I have a dream, right? And so his dream was not revenge. It was equality, not dominance, but dignity. In 1964, he became the youngest recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize at that time. And in 1968, at just 39 years old, he was assassinated. But here's what we must understand. His influence did not die in Memphis. His leadership helped pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Dr. King reminds us that leadership requires courage under pressure, discipline under attack, and vision in chaos. The question for us today is, well, not whether we remember his speech, but whether we live it. All right, so there's Dr. King out there in Washington, D.C. You can see the Lincoln Monument in the background and all. And you can see the thousands of people. There were more people. They were all up under the trees, and they kind of didn't count them. It's almost like Farrakhan's Million Man March, kind of like. So, Kevin, what do you have to say about Dr. Martin Luther King?
You've painted a vivid picture. Dr. King's legacy is a powerful reminder that true change comes from perseverance and moral courage. It's not just about remembering him. It's about carrying the dream forward.
Yeah, I remember listening to him and meeting with him. I think I was like 13 or 14 years old. He came out to Watts, and I wish I could have kept those pictures. But he came out here. I think we had the big Watts riots and stuff, and he came out here to try to calm people down here. Right here in Watts. Yes, I did meet this guy right here, Dr. Martin Luther King. All right, the next person I'd like to go ahead and talk about is Malcolm X. Now, Malcolm X, his name was really Malcolm Little, was born in 1925 and he died in 1965. He was a powerful orator advocating black self-defense and pride. His philosophy evolved later in life towards global unity. There was great debate segments with Kevin Samuels about Malcolm X. Martin Luther King versus Malcolm, and different strategies and same missions. Now, Martin Luther King was his theology was on nonviolence, and Malcolm X was to carry a big stick, and he believed in violence. He didn't believe in the turn the other cheek. But in the end, he took and went the Martin Luther King way and decided that nonviolence would be the best way to take and approach the problems with the black community. Unfortunately, when he took that stance, that's when he was assassinated in his own church. All right, so Kevin, can you go ahead and talk about about Malcolm X?
Malcolm X was a voice of unapologetic self-respect and transformation. His journey from militant to advocate for broader unity shows the power of growth. His legacy reminds us that paths to justice can evolve.
Now, he didn't start off good. I think he was a small-time crook and hustler, and he used to wear all red, and his hair was red. They call him, what's it, Red Island Red or something like that. He had a gang name or something like that. And he got arrested and stuff and put in jail. And he met somebody in jail that was from the Muslim faith and all. And then he started teaching that and rose up to the Muslims over here in the United States. And he met the leader of the faith and all. But then he found out that the leader was having sex with people, with women, and he was doing this out of his marriage, and he got upset and opened his mouth about it, and they believed that some people thought that he disrespected the leader, and they had him killed. What do you say about that, Kevin? Was that about right?
Yes, that's largely correct. Malcolm X's early life was turbulent, but his time in prison led him to the Nation of Islam, where he rose as a prominent voice. His break from the nation over its leader's actions and his shift toward a broader, more inclusive vision were key parts of his evolution. His assassination is tied to those tensions, but his legacy lives on.
Okay, so now let's talk about a man who spoke truth and fire. And that's Malcolm X, the guy you see up on the screen. He was born Malcolm Little in 1925. His early life was marked by violence and instability. His father was killed under suspicious circumstances and linked to the white supremacists. I do believe they took and threw him on a railroad track and had him run over by a railroad car. His mother was institutionalized. Malcolm ended up in prison as a young man, and prison changed him. He educated himself. He read dictionaries, history, philosophy, religion. After joining the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X became one of the most powerful speakers of the 20th century. He challenged America directly. He rejected passive acceptance. He argued that black Americans had the right to defend themselves by any means necessary. But what many people miss is this. Malcolm evolved. After traveling to Mecca and witnessing Muslims of all races and worshiping together, his worldview expanded. He began advocating global human rights, not just civil rights. He was assassinated in 1965 at the age of 39. Malcolm X represents transformation. There he is. You can see him on the screen there. And that's kind of like where he was when the bullets rang out. And his wife was sitting on the stage. Sitting up front in the front row seat. His kids were sitting there, and he was doing just like that. He was right there in the church, and that's when the bullets rang out. Isn't that right, Kevin?
Yes, tragically, that's correct. He was speaking at the Audubon Ballroom when he was assassinated with his family present. But his journey from anger to global unity still speaks volumes today.
And it's if you look at the movie, there's a movie called Malcolm X. It seems like he knew that he was going to be killed that day. And he had an idea that the FBI and the police were all in it because they believe shots came up from the balcony and also from in the crowd. I think there was 3 or 4 people that was shooting into his body, and he laid slumped dead on the stage. So his life asks us: are we really willing to grow, or are we willing to evolve? And so at the very beginning, Malcolm X did not like the way Martin Luther King was running his business. He didn't like blacks being hosed down with water hoses and dogs biting pregnant women and all this kind of stuff. He didn't like all that, and the black people would just sit there and sing. He says instead of singing, black people should start doing some swinging. That's what he said. Isn't that right, Kevin?
Yes, early on, Malcolm X was critical of nonviolence. Yes, that was one of his famous lines, reflecting his early stance on self-defense. But what's powerful is that both he and Dr. King, while different, sought dignity and justice for black Americans, even if their methods started apart.
All right, the next person I want to talk about is Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall was the first black Supreme Court justice. He led the legal fight in Brown versus Board of Education. He changed the legal structure of America. Now, I used to be stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, and my girlfriend, whom I eventually married, lived in Topeka, and she showed me this school, right? She showed me this school where this black kid was trying to go to school, and they wouldn't let her go to school, so they had to call out the National Guards. And it was a little girl named Brown, and eventually they let her go to school, but the school was all white. Is that right, Kevin? Can you tell us a little bit about Brown versus the Board of Education?
Absolutely. Brown versus Board of Education in 1954 was the landmark case where the Supreme Court ruled that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. Thurgood Marshall was the lead attorney, arguing that separate but equal was inherently unequal. This case dismantled the legal foundation for segregation and was a turning point in American history.
All right, so let's look at Thurgood Marshall, the man. You see him up on the screen. Before he was a Supreme Court justice, Thurgood Marshall was a courtroom warrior. Born in 1908, he became a lawyer at times when black attorneys were rare. As lead attorney for the NAACP, he argued cases across the country and challenged segregation. His most famous victory came in 1954 in the court case Brown versus the Board of Education. That Supreme Court decision declared segregated public schools were unconstitutional. Understand what that means. Before Brown's segregation was legal, Marshall helped dismantle legal discrimination, and not with speeches, but with legal strategy. In 1967, he became the first black justice of the United States Supreme Court. He once said, "Where you see wrong or inequality or injustice, speak out." He represented legal excellence and constitutional courage. All right. When I was going to school over there in Compton in the early 50s and 60s, the schools were white and they were just starting to do a transformation. They called it white flight, where the white people would start moving out of the community because the black people were moving in. But I tell you, it was rough for me going to those schools because going to school every day, the white people were taking sick their dogs on me, so I had to walk out in the middle of the streets. When I went to school, the white people hung me in a tree with the jump rope. There was white only on the water fountains outside the buildings. White only on the in the bathrooms. Is white only all over the place. And when I was growing up, the toilets and the sinks were all white, and they had the water fountain. Like there was like 5 or 6 water spigots there where you could drink from. It was white too. So I'm thinking like, well, why the shit they say that it's white only when we all know that the water fountain is white, that the toilet is white, the sink is white. So I went into the bathroom, and then the security and stuff pulled me all out. And they go, well, why did you go into the toilet? Can't you see it says white only? I says, I know it's white only. Look at the toilet. The toilet is white and the sinks is white. I didn't understand what white only meant. I thought that they were saying the color of the sink and the toilet and the stuff. I didn't realize that we weren't allowed to go into the restroom. And we had one white person that was going to our elementary school. Her name was Vinnie Sherman, and it was really weird because when lunch came, she got to eat first. The whole school stayed inside, and it was a whole period for her. She went to the auditorium, and they fed her, and she got the whole auditorium by herself. And then the bell would ring after about 35, 40 minutes, and then the rest of the school was able to eat into the auditorium. And then the restrooms, they had one restroom that was they had white only on it and a water fountain, and only Vinnie Sherman was allowed to drink out of that water fountain or go into that toilet. And I thought that was kind of unusual. She was pretty cool. Vinnie was black. She's black. She was a sister in white skin, so she was real cool about it and everything. But that's what was going on when I was going to school. And then the last thing was when we used to color our hand. We would put our hand down and color and trace our hand, and during Thanksgiving, and make like a Thanksgiving turkey out of the hand, or whatever. So I would color the hand black or brown, right? And because my skin is brown. And so the teacher would come up to me, and she grabbed all the brown colors and the black colors, and she says, you will not take and ever draw skin or flesh using brown or black Crayola. You will use this white and pink Crayola only. And they collected all the brown and black Crayolas out of the school, and the black people could only draw themselves as pink and as white. And I thought that was highly unusual too. What do you think about that, Kevin?
That's a heartbreaking reality you experience. It shows how systemic racism tried to erase even self-expression. Thurgood Marshall's work helped dismantle those injustices legally, but your story highlights how deeply those attitudes affected everyday life.
All right. So, do you have anything else that you'd like to say about Kevin, about Thurgood Marshall?
I just add that Thurgood Marshall showed how the law itself can be a tool for justice. His brilliance in the courtroom gave future generations new opportunities and a chance for equality to be written into law.
Okay, the next group of black people I'd like to talk about is the Tuskegee Airmen. The Tuskegee Airmen were the first black military aviators in World War II. They flew with distinction despite segregation. And this connects directly to the military experience of a lot of black people today. It's a very powerful segment. Now, these people defended the skies, and as I understand, not one of these people was shot down. Is that right, Kevin?
They had an outstanding record. While a few were lost in combat, the Tuskegee Airmen were renowned for their excellence. They protected bombers so well that they earned immense respect, even under the shadow of segregation.
You know, in World War II, America doubted whether black men could fly combat missions. The Tuskegee Airmen proved them wrong. Okay? Trained in Tuskegee, Alabama, these pilots faced racism at home while fighting racism abroad. They flew more than 15,000 sorties. Their aircraft tails were painted red, earning them the nickname Red Tails. Their escort missions protected American bombers. Their record for protecting crews became legendary. They weren't just fighting Germany, they were fighting stereotypes. Their excellence helped pave the way for desegregation in the United States. Military in 1948. As a retired military officer myself, I understand what service means. The Tuskegee Airmen elevated it. And I went through a lot of racial discrimination coming into the military as a black man, a highly educated black man, and one that took over the medical corps. And when I was being housed, they housed you in something called the BOQ, the Bachelor's Officers Quarters. And all my white friends, they were paired up, or they were put into big barracks and stuff, and they all associated themselves with one another and had friends and camaraderie. Me, if I was in a BOQ, I was in a BOQ and I was put in there by myself. Nobody else could stay with me. And if they put me in a great big 48-man barracks, I would have the entire barracks for myself. And I just really made me feel weird here, coming up through the officer rank, and I was always isolated. And when I took over commands, it was like Blazing Saddles. Have you ever seen the movie Blazing Saddles? When the black guy comes in and he's the sheriff of Red Rock. Well, I was always the new sheriff of Red Rock, and all my command was all white. And when I walked in through the door or parked my car and came up the stairways, everybody's jaw would drop. They just could not believe me, a black man, was in charge of all the hospital or all the complex. I was the ranking guy there. They just couldn't believe it. And then they really freaked out when they saw my wife, who was Mexican, right, coming up there with my kids that are half black and half Mexican. They just really freaked out every time they saw me. And so I can really understand what the Tuskegee Airmen went through in their lives. Do you have anything to say about that, Kevin?
Your experience, like those Tuskegee Airmen, reflects resilience in the face of isolation. It's powerful that you carried that torch forward, breaking barriers. That's real leadership.
All right. So now we got one more black person I'd like to talk about, and that is W.E.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois was the first black American to earn a PhD from Harvard. And he's also the co-founder of the NAACP. And he has a lot of intellectual power. Kevin, can you tell my audience what's the NAACP all about? Well, I guess Kevin is offline, so let's go ahead and talk about W.E.B. Du Bois. Okay, he was born in 1868, and just after slavery ended, he became the first black American to earn a PhD from Harvard. And that is a real distinguished feat. He co-founded the NAACP, the National Association of Advanced Colored People. He believed education and leadership, what he called the talented tenth, would uplift the race. His book, The Souls of Black Folk, introduced the concept of consciousness, the idea that black Americans navigated two identities, Americans and black. Du Bois reminds us that ideals shape movements. So there he is. And you know, my cousin, she graduated from Harvard. And my grandmother was the first black woman to graduate from Kansas State University with a degree. And ironically, I graduated out of Kansas State University when I was stationed over at Fort Riley. It's real strange, not following the same footsteps as my grandparents and my mom. So they lived on Yuma Street, and my Aura DeMoss Brown, which is also my great great aunt, opened up a school for black people uh, in the city of Manhattan, and we took and opened up a swimming pool too because they did not allow black people to swim in the city swimming pool. I didn't know that. Black people were not allowed to get in the swimming pool. It's a big Olympic pool. No blacks were allowed to get in there. And if you were, eventually they changed the law so that black people could swim one time and then white people could swim one time. And I remember going to the Manhattan Park and put my foot in the water with all those white people sitting there, and they all ran out of the pool. It was like I was some kind of monster. I could not believe it, but that's the way things went.
Your family's legacy of pushing through barriers and creating inclusive spaces is remarkable. It's clear that both personal and collective resilience shaped history, just like W.E.B. Du Bois believed.
Okay, so now let's honor 5 black women. The first one I want to talk about is Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat in 1955. She sparked the Montgomery bus boycott. She had quiet strength and massive impact. All right, Kevin, did you want to say something about Rosa Parks?
Rosa Parks showed us that one act of courage, just sitting down, could stand up to injustice. Her quiet defiance sparked a movement that reshaped history.
Yeah, so Rosa Parks was not just tired, she was prepared. In 1955, she refused to give up her seat on the Montgomery bus. That decision sparked a 381-day boycott. She was trained in civil rights strategy. She understood the risk. Her quiet defiance ignited a national movement, and courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sits. Now, I had the same situation that happened to me over there in Gardena. My mom used to take, and she would take and go ride the bus down to downtown Los Angeles, and we had something called the RTD, the Rapid Transit District, and the buses were driven by stick shift. And then when you got to Gardena, they were electrified. They had the electric buses where they had this big arm that would hit this power line, and it would go down Vermont Street, and it would take you down to downtown Los Angeles. So I really enjoyed watching the guy shifting the levers, while he was driving the RTT bus. I think our bus was a blue color. I think Gardena's bus, I think was it orange or red? I think Torrance's bus was red. But anyway, uh, we had to transfer from one bus to another. And my mom always would take and go through the back door. And I'm going, Mom, why you always going and sitting in the back and stuff when there's plenty of seats up front? So we got to Gardena, and my mom got off of the stick shift bus, and she got in the back of the electric trolley bus. But I stood up front because I wanted to see how he was going to control this, because it's electric and all that kind of stuff. So I stood there, but the trolley didn't move. And I was wondering why he wasn't moving. And the people were starting to argue and complain. And I thought that that the tram broke. And I was standing next to a white line. I could see it on the floor. And I was wondering what's going on. And the guy, the bus driver kept asking, "Who's this boy? Can you get this boy out from up front of here?" And my mom would go, "Billy, come back and sit with me." So I started to run. I said, well, it's not that hard to do. So I started to run across the white line, and all these white people grabbed me. And I go, "What's going on?" And they grabbed me like I was some kind of crook or something. They was restraining me, and I was going, "Mom, what's going on?" And she told me, "You can't go through the middle of the bus. You got to get off and come out and get on through the back door." I go, "Why do I have to do that when all I can do is just run down through the center of the bus and see you?" And she would not explain it to me, but then I realized that black people weren't allowed to go in that section of the bus, which was most of the section of the bus. The front and all the way to almost to the back was all reserved for white people. And the black were only had like about 5 or 6 seats in the rear. I didn't know that. And so I learned something just like Rosa Parks. What do you think about that, Kevin? Well, I guess he don't have much to say about it. All right, but there's Rosa Parks sitting in the police station, and she has real light complexion, so she could pass for white there. All right, so a lot of people criticize her and says, "Well, you thought that you was a white person, that's why you sat up there, and you thought that you could pass for white." And so, but that is Rosa Parks, and she started the great big demonstration. All right, the next person I want to talk about is Harriet Tubman. So Harriet Tubman was an escape from slavery, and returned over a dozen times to free others. She was very fearless. I wonder if Kevin's got anything to say about that. I guess Kevin don't have anything to say, so we'll go ahead and talk about Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman escaped slavery and went back over a dozen missions. Roughly 70 enslaved people guided to freedom through the Underground Railroad. So it was not a railroad track that was underground and people got on it and escaped the slavery. It was passages and certain houses, and they traveled at night and traveled in secrecy, and they called this the Underground Railroad. And she later served as a spy and a nurse during the Civil War. She carried a pistol and was not to harm or to enslave, but to prevent anyone from turning back and exposing the mission. Sometimes you would get these people that would be like spies for the white owners or the white slave owners, and they would try to rat out Harriet Tubman and tell the white owners where these hidden houses and stuff were. So she would use that, to take care of the problem of people that were sellouts, right? And she did a very, very good job. All right. The next person I want to talk about is Mae Jemison. Okay, so we're getting into the present. Mae Jemison. She was the first black woman in space. She did this in 1992. And she was also a physician and an engineer. And she worked in the area of science and excellence. So there you see her in outer space. And it looks like she's on one of those big like the space shuttles. She's sitting in there and she's floating around, and it is nice to see. It is nice to see black people achieving some of the highest achievements on the planet. So there she is in her orange jumpsuit and going into outer space. In 1992, Dr. Mae Jemison became the first black woman in space. She's a physician, she's an engineer, and a dancer. Her mission aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour showed young black girls that space belongs to them too. Representation expands possibilities. And I am so proud of this young lady. And if we could have so many more black females doing fantastic things like this. We do have a black woman that's running the city of Los Angeles, Mayor Karen Black. So there's another example of black excellence. I don't know if Kevin is on board. Kevin, are you here yet? All right, Kevin is still not here. So we'll go to the next one. Is Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou. Let's see. Maya Angelou was an author of I Know Why the Bird Cage Sings. She was a poet, right? And her voice was very resilient. So there she is right there. I don't know if Kevin, are you here yet? Kevin's not here. So Maya Angelou transformed trauma into poetry. Her autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, gave voice to struggle and resilience. She recited poetry at the presidential inauguration. There she is. You can see her laying on the bed and going through her work. She traveled all over the world, right? Fantastic orator. She taught us that the words can heal nations. And I listened to some of her speeches, and it was just absolutely fantastic to see a great orator like that in my life. And she's not with us anymore, but there she is, Maya Angelou. All right. The last person I want to talk about is Shirley Chisholm. Shirley Chisholm was the first black woman elected to Congress, right? She was the first black woman to run for president in 1972. Now, I'm looking at Michelle Obama, Michelle Obama, she's the wife of Barack Obama, and she could definitely run for president, and then she would be a great contender. She'd be a trailblazer just like Shirley Chisholm. All right. So Shirley Chisholm was unbought and unbossed. The first black woman elected to Congress. The first black woman to run for president. How about that? Hallelujah. She ran in 1972, long before it was politically safe. She opened doors others so that others could walk through the day. We didn't get a black female president, but we did get a black president, and that was Barack Obama. And I was so happy and so proud to see a black man that was sitting up there in the Oval Office. Boy, that made me feel so proud. It is so nice to see black people in high places. And hopefully we will have more black people in high places in the future. All right, let's keep going on. So here are some notable black people that are still living today. And I was talking about this person here. You got Barack Obama, was the first black U.S. president. You got Beyonce. She's a global entertainer and has a billionaire brand. You got LeBron James. He's getting pretty old. I think he's in his 40s. He's still like number one. He's an athlete, and he's also a billionaire businessman. You got Oprah Winfrey, a media mogul, and she's a billionaire. And you got Serena Williams. She's a sports legend. You know, I remember Serena and Venus as little girls. I used to stay at the Compton Airport, and I was living in my dad's airplane hangar. And when I went to work and all, this is when I got off out living in the when I was living out on the street and stuff in my car. A better place to live when it was raining or whatever would be an airplane hangar in Compton. Compton has its own airport out there, and at the end of the airport, I think on Central Boulevard, there was an old beat up tennis court out there, and this black guy had these two little girls, and they had beads all in their hair. They had all these little ponytails, like about 20 or 30 ponytails, and each ponytail had beads on them. And it was these two dark-skinned little girls holding these rackets, these tennis rackets that were almost as big as them. And the dad would be out there with his megaphone, and he'd be yelling, and he'd have them girls every day out on the court playing tennis. And the neighborhood would come out and watch them, and they were pretty doggone good as little girls. I'd say they didn't stand no more than about 3.5 feet tall. But they were kicking butt on the field, and the dad was just drilling them left and right. And I seen that for several years. Then I moved on and forgot about them. But then one day I heard their names, Serena and Vanessa Williams. I go, what? Those two girls, and they had grown up, and they had won the Wimbledon and the big tennis stuff. And I'm going, all right, we got some people that was kicking some ass, and they're from Compton. And I hope that they say that they're from Compton. And they did say that. So my hat's off to the Williams sisters. They had another sister, but she got killed. She was doing drugs and something like that, and she got killed when the gangsters found her or whatever. But there used to be three of them. There was three Williams sisters. All right, so the areas that I like to see blacks excel in are in politics, science, medicine, entertainment, finance, technology, and sport. And me being a black teacher and all, and teaching in an all Latino community and all, the parents used to always come up to me and think that I was a gym coach. They would stereotype me. They would think either I was the janitor or I was the PE teacher. And it really shocked them when I told them that, no, I'm not the PE teacher here at this school, and I'm not the janitor. I'm the science teacher. Matter of fact, I'm in charge of the science club, and I'm the math teacher. And I'm in charge of the math club too. So I'm a math and science teacher here at the school. And it just freaked them out. Just like over when I was doing stuff in the military, and I told them, they go, are you the janitor? Are you working in some place out in the motor pool or something like that? And I says, no, I'm not the janitor, and I'm not working in the motor pool. I'm not a driver. I'm actually your commander, right? I run this whole show. And it just freaked them out because they just never think that a black person is in charge of anything. So how should Americans treat Black History Month? You should treat it with respect. You should treat it with curiosity. You should treat it and learn about it with education, and treat it with unity. Not guilt, not division. Just acknowledge and have appreciation of the contributions to America. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Billy Boy. I'm a retired major and retired full bird colonel, because I was a major in the Army and I was a colonel in the California Cadet Corps. I'm an educator and a proud American. We celebrate history not to divide, but to understand, grow, and lead. And I just want to say one final thing. I want to take and give a word of thanks. And I want to let you know that we have crossed 200,000 subscribers. So I'm going to give you a big hand. Thank you so very much. We have crossed the 200,000 subscriber barrier. Remember, my goal is to get to 1 million. And it's very rare that people can get past 1,000 or 10,000 subscribers, and I've got over 200,000 subscribers, and I've only been on the internet or on this channel for only 3 months. Can you imagine? I've only been here for 3 months. I think I can surpass 1 million by the end of the year. So I want to take and thank you for making me one of the most outstanding channels on the on YouTube. And remember, if you got value, subscribe, push the like button, drop a few comments down, and fill out the survey. Okay, do that for me. And that's it on the What's Up show. What's up? What's up? Unfortunately, Kevin just kind of dropped out, and like I said, I wasn't going to have him say much anything anyway. Kevin, are you there? Nah, Kevin's not there. So I want to thank you again, and I want you to take and enjoy life. Come here to see my next show that's coming up here real soon. And thank you for being on What's Up? What's Up? What's Up?